Just a reminder, this exercise session is being hosted by the Southern Utah University Center for Rural Health, which is where Franca and I are from. That we'll be recording them and that everything will be available and emailed out to those that are registered. And then please feel free to share the registration information and the sessions and the links. And then a reminder once again that we'll be monitoring the chat and helping facilitate questions. Okay, next slide. I'd like to reintroduce our illustrious presenter today, Dr. Ivory Tubbs. Just really quick, he is a dedicated clinical expert, psychotherapist, and licensed addiction counselor associate. He has a passion for improving the lives of individuals in rural communities affected by substance use disorders and opioid use disorders. He also has extensive experience in program development and evaluation. He's a technical expert lead at WICHE and provides technical support to the Health Resource and Services Administration and rural communities of opioid response program. His expertise extends to multi-sector consortiums in rural communities, assisting grantees in planning and implementing their work plans to address SUD and OUD. So that's just a little quick overview of our expertise and the um, level of experience that our presenter has. So I would like to turn the time over to Dr. Tubbs.
Thank you, Kylie. Thank you, everybody, for joining and everybody who has returned. Glad you did. Just to go real quick, I wanted to recap some of the things that we discussed in the first session about motivational interviewing, just some of the keys that we always have to focus on. It doesn't matter how many times we've done this. One of the things that I've learned about the basics in sports and in life, you always have to go back down to the fundamentals. Fundamentals, no, never change. And one thing about that, I remember something I heard Michael Jordan's college basketball coach say, and he said, you see him, all the flash and you see all the things that he does, he said, but he is one of the most fundamentally sound players I've ever had. So I say that to say that we always got to stick to the fundamentals. Doesn't matter how many patients you see, how many years you've been doing this. We always have to stick to what actually works, that foundational structure. And the first thing is just to engage. We talked about that before, right? Engaging with your clients, just opening dialogue, creating a partnership, letting them know that they're not in this alone. And then you want to work to understand what influences the patient, what's going on with them, what kind of things are going on in their world to where it influences their actions, their behaviors, their environment. Understand those things. And then we assist them in identifying how those behaviors, how those things are affected, or excuse me, their behaviors are affected by their influences, and then how it relates to their broader goals. And then, we aid them in resolving the indifference as it comes to making the decision to change. We always want to ask open-ended questions. Always be reflective listening. Remember, we discussed last week about the difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is simply acknowledging a sound. Listening is the act of really just pulling out information. I've heard a lot of people who say, I heard you. Well, but were you listening? And that's where we are on this stage. With communication in MI, we have to listen. We can't just hear. We've got to listen. And then we've got to build that motivation. And in building that motivation, we don't always know what everyone's goals are. Like I said last week, everyone's goals may be a little different, but we can build that motivation based on the open-ended questions, reflective listening. That'll make it easy. Make it extremely easy. If you're paying attention, you can build motivation if you're paying attention. And then again, summarize. We're summarizing what was said, summarizing the conversation. And I'll also add this, we have to be mindful that we're not there to correct them. There are people who have been in recovery, long-term recovery. And I think I said this last week, we have changed some of the words that we use. But if they refer to themselves as an addict, well, I'm just an old addict. You know what? It's not your time. This is not the time to correct them. That comes later on. Yep, left this one up. every day. Every day is an interview because we've got to establish that rapport. And I left this up because this is, again, this is one of those foundational pieces that we can never, ever, ever get away from, ever get away from. In order to be effective, we always have to establish a rapport. Whoever it is, I don't care who it is. I've known people who have owned restaurants, and I try to be as kind to the person bringing me my food as I would to him. And the reason is, why be rude? Every day is an interview. People are watching. People are paying attention. And when, say, the situation at the restaurant, if I were to ask for something extra, because I established that rapport, because I was aware that how I come across to someone can, I mean, you don't know, you can make or break their day, right? So every day is that interview. I know that if I ask for something else, they will be more apt to bring it to me. So this session is about the four processes of motivational interviewing. And they're really simple, but they also can go pretty deep. When you're talking about engaging a client, we spoke about that. Focusing the conversation, focusing on what it is that they are trying to say if they can't articulate it. And then evoking. Evoking is that it's the why part of the process. And then planning. When you get to planning, that's self-explanatory. You're planning the next steps. You're planning with them the next steps. This isn't a solo act. There have been in situations where the treatment team are the people who plan, but how many of us really truly engage in something that we didn't have any input in? And this is not the time to just focus solely on the treatment team. Bring in the patient, bring in your client, talk to them, see what their plans are. What would they like to do? How would they like to see this go? Now, granted, we all have structural processes that we have to go through within our organizations, but they can have some input. Engaging. And I want to make sure I put this out there. If you have any questions or anything like that, the chat is being monitored. Please don't wait till the end. If you have questions, put your hand up, toss the question out so we can have that discussion, because if you're thinking about it, somebody else may be thinking about it. So when we start talking about engaging, these are some ideas. When you engage a patient or a client, introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Dr. Tubbs, and I'm a clinician here. This is what I do, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure you introduce yourself. And I know this seems so elementary, and I know some people are like, oh, come on. You would be surprised. You would be surprised at how many people will interact with the client or patient and don't say a word. They just flop down and get to yapping. These are the types of things we got to do. We got to engage them, because this is our environment. This isn't their environment. They don't necessarily know what to expect, and they're already defensive. So, and then we got to discuss preferred names. And, in today's world, if pronouns are necessary, and, let's discuss those pronouns. This is not the time for you to insert your bias on whether you think pronouns are dumb or not. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying this is not the time for you to insert how you feel about something. This is about the patient or the client. And then, let's establish some boundaries, right? What kind of boundaries could you establish? Now, one is, say profanity. Look, if I'm not cursing at you, don't curse at me. I'd appreciate it if you did. Now, don't get me wrong. I can understand it. You may use a word and it may help you describe a situation. Everyone that we encounter won't be linguists and know different languages and have this Ivy League level of vocabulary. So let's just kind of cut people some slack. I put here legalized substance use. You are not going to sit in front of me and blaze up. That's just not going to happen. I mean, we've got to have some kind of boundaries. And then what things should we or should not, or should we not discuss? This is how you establish your boundaries. Just Hey, look, this is where we are. One of the worst things that can happen, and these are things that happened to me early, is to not really have any boundaries, and you just kind of let this thing go where it goes, and before you know it, you are so far off course that you are trying to find a roadmap and ask people for directions to get back on course. So always make sure that you establish your boundaries. I know that there are times where if it's a female and a male, you know, you keep the door open, something like that. Whatever you have to do to make sure that you're safe and make sure they feel safe as well. And then what you want to do is also emphasize confidentiality. And that's huge when you come into these situations where you're trying to apply MI, because they need to know that, what I say it's not going anywhere. And, I like to tell people, sometimes, according to HIPAA, based on HIPAA laws, I can't tell people anything anyway, right? It's one of those golden nuggets that I had to learn the hard way, I think. And I won't say it the hard way. I think it took some time. Disarm the client early. Um, and tell them something, to this effect. You can tell me as much or as little as you choose. I'm interested in what I can do to help you. And oftentimes, when you take that pressure off of the person coming to you who might be interested in change, this helps them greatly. I know you're probably wondering, why do I have Big Bird? Because I've told people before, I don't care if you come to my office wearing a Big Bird costume. I genuinely don't care. Um, if this is something that makes you feel comfortable, fine. If we can have a good conversation, a good session, fine. But I do give them fair, I'll give them fair warning. If you start clucking and pecking for bugs, calls will be made. I will call people. Trust me, I'll call people. And if you are not on meds, you will soon be. And if you are on med, we will have a discussion about upping those meds. And it also gives me an idea of how much more we've got to do if you come in here in a Big Bird costume and you're pecking at the floor and you're clucking. So these are the types of things that I talk to my patients about. It disarms them, because we know good and well nobody's coming in a Big Bird uniform, or excuse me, outfit. And now that I said that, some of y'all will probably have somebody come in. Matter of fact, we're getting close to Halloween, so apologize for that in advance if you get if you get somebody coming in there in a costume. But the point is to just to disarm them as soon as you can, because when you disarm them, then they're willing to talk. They see that you're not pressuring them. And like I said, based on HIPAA, I can't say anything to anybody anyway, other than the treatment team, right? So one of the next steps, one of the next things that we have to focus on is reflection. I mean, not reflection, but focusing. And we're reflecting on the details that were shared with us by the client. And these are just examples. If I'm understanding you correctly, your substance use is mainly contained in the evenings, and it messes with your sleep, and then you're irritable. Is that correct? If you notice in that, there's nothing that I assumed. This is based on them sharing this with me. There's nothing that I assume. This is not the time to assume. We don't assume. We don't need to assume, because I don't know, right? I'm repeating back to you what you shared with me. And I don't know how many times, someone has said something, repeated back to you what you said, and uh, maybe it didn't sound right, or maybe it sounded exactly right. I remember growing up, I could say to my mom, Mom, I can't find my shoes. And she stopped and said, say that one more time. I can't find my shoes. Say that one more time. I can't find my shoes. Right. They're not mine. They're yours. Not my problem. Right. But what happened was, she was trying to make me hear and listen to myself. What did I just say? And this is what we're doing here. We're refocusing. You're refocusing on the client. You're helping them to understand, okay, this is what I heard you say. And there's sometimes it will happen when you do this, they'll say, yeah, you know what, that didn't sound right. Great. That's where we are. That's where I want us to be. I want that input. I want them to not just think that they are sitting before us waiting for a solution. I want them to understand and look, no, this is a team effort, right? And this is how you acknowledge their dilemma. And I can see how frustrating it is to you for you. In no way whatsoever have I patronized them, haven't belittled them. I mean, I know I don't like my sleep. Um, I don't like my sleep disturbed, but I also don't use substances to disturb my sleep to cause me to be irritable. But as a human, I can see how that is frustrating, right? You're ready to go to sleep, but you can't go to sleep because you got this thing coursing through your veins, this stuff coursing through your veins. And this is where we are. We've got to be mindful that we still got to be humans, but to focus on the patient, on the client, and to reflect what they're saying is huge. Open-minded questions, they aren't seriously, just the figuratively, just the oil that keeps the conversation running. It keeps that assessment going when you ask open-ended questions. And when you're asking open-ended questions, you can do it. I won't say can. You can do it. You can be offensive. But by and large, when you're asking open-ended questions, you're not being offensive. You are genuinely curious. You're genuinely trying to show them, no, I'm listening to you, but I'm curious about this or I'm curious about that. And as you can see here, so out of curiosity, is there a reason why you've only been using in the evenings? That is a curious question, right? You can ask that question because they didn't give you the information before. So if they haven't given you the information before, that means that you can ask it. And again, open-ended questions. This keeps things going. You want them to talk. You know, um, are there any other ways in which this is impacting your life? That's an open-ended question because what we want them to do is we want them to start to think. This is how you make this a joint effort on whether or not they want to do something different, if they want to change. Because when you ask a question such as this, all of a sudden they're starting to think, I know the immediate issue, say I'm that person who is using in the evening. I know that immediate issue. I use at night, I'm tired and I'm irritable. I'm irritable because I'm tired. Okay. I know that part. But what other ways is it impacting you? And think about it. I don't eat. I don't eat until, 1 or 2 o'clock. And then but now I'm eating too much and I eat too much and I get sleepy at work. Do you see what I'm saying? When you open the door for them to share things like this, you find out a whole lot more and you see how many other areas of their life that it impacts that they didn't even think about. Good questions. These are the things that will put all the pieces in the right place. And it's from Matt Abrahams, and he is a communications expert from out of Stanford University and a lecturer. And I like the anatomy of questions. I like what he's put together. And what we got to remember is that, look, concise questions, they prevent people from being distracted. I know, I'll speak personally. When the situation calls for it, I'm a bottom line person. Tell me what you need. Don't, and I'm sure some of us are like this. If you're busy enough, I need the bottom line. I don't need to know who said what color was the shirt I don't need any of that. Bottom line, tell me what you need. Because once you tell me what you need, I can stay focused on trying to solve the problem or finding where the problem is, right? So this example, you took a bold step and wanted to talk today. What else is going on? I don't know how much more concise to make that question. What's going on in your world? You're talking to me today. We're talking about this. So, what's happening? You would have to have somebody help you get distracted with a question like that. What is it, 6 words? You know, you'd have to find somebody to offer you assistance, to be distracted, to ask me again, oh, okay, well, what did you just say? No, it's a concise question. And then they build on what was said, um, which can further that conversation. Again, these questions on the previous page. So, out of curiosity, is there any reason why you've been using in the evenings, right? Does that question not cause you to build? It helps you to build on the next question. Because again, like I said, once you start to ask the questions and they start to give you the answers, then you can ask other questions that will give you information. Because I can find out very quickly certain things. And this is not so much my training, but it's just being observant when people are talking. If I were to speak to someone and, I say, oh man, you know what, let's go out to lunch. This great salad bar around the corner, they don't have any meat or what have you. And someone says something to me like, ah, salad. Now I'm starting to think, okay, well, now I can ask another question. Do you not really like vegetables very much? Do you see the open-ended questions? And this is simple everyday stuff. I'm not trying to, drag something out of Freud or Dostoevsky or anything. This is simple questions. Open-ended questions allow the conversation to continue and you find out more information. So again, you know, um, the example is, do you not like salads or do you not like vegetables as much? That's an open-ended question where you have to answer now, especially if it's not offensive. It's extremely inefficient. It was just, an inquisitive, me being inquisitive about, why would you not want salad? But in that, I can start to understand some things. And then they revolve around a focused idea or, um, again, like I said, the bottom line. And this is this question, are there any other ways in which this has impacted your life? That's pretty straightforward. That is really just as simple as I can ask this as it pertains to the issue that we are now discussing. All right, you're using in the evenings. Um, you told me how you felt and why you felt that way, and you're not sleeping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so again, I can ask that question, and what happens? It sparks additional thought, because that's what we want. Um, we can do assessments. We can take an assessment, and if you're working with somebody who has been, and this is not a judgment in any way whatsoever, if you have been working with somebody who has been institutionalized or what have you, and I mean incarcerated or what have you, something like that, they're very good at telling you exactly what you want to hear. This is when we start to pick it apart. We start asking questions that they're not ready for. Some surveys some questions are like, when's the last time you used? What did you use? How often do you use? Do you use alone? They're ready to answer those questions. But I catch you off guard real quick. So is there anywhere else in your life that this is a problem? Oh, crap. I didn't think about that. They're used to answering questions. That's when we have to get them out. We've got to get them out of the mindset of just being a robot and answering questions. Then again, summarize. So, yeah, all right. Well, you shared a lot with me, and then you can read this yourself. But just to paraphrase it, it's you want to show your appreciation. Thank you. You shared a lot, and I kind of know that was tough. Um, you've also mentioned that your job is a source of frustration because you don't really like your job, and out of that frustration, and you're telling me that you're experimenting with other substances as you can get your hands on them. Is that correct? Again, we're not making up anything, not making up a thing. I'm not adding anything. I am not telling you how you feel. Um, that's one of the quickest ways to set somebody off is to tell them how they feel. You remember everybody who was on the call last week, you remember I told you when I play golf and people know what I do. They're like, "Oh, you're analyzing me. Are you nuts?" No, I'm not. I know psychologists call somebody nuts. I apologize. Um, but I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Because some people are thinking that I have this crystal ball and I'm looking through it. I'm telling you, in the next 2 days. No, man. No, I'm not telling you how you feel. If you want to tell me how you feel, do it. But it's a way to set people off when you do things like that. When you try to tell them how they feel. When you summarize, I'm telling you what you told me. And if I miss something, it leaves less for them to correct if I miss something. If I tell them how they feel or what this looks like, I can say something to the effect of, well, it looks like if you stop using whatever you're using, you're going to get some sleep. That, duh, right? But I just told you how you felt. That is one of the ways where you shut down communication. When we summarize what they've said, and again, if we miss any part of that, if we miss a small part, they have less to correct, which one helps them to be a part of this process. And secondly, it kind of validates us to them that I'm paying attention to you. People like to be heard. I've said last week, I am not my favorite topic to discuss, nor is my voice something that puts me to sleep at night. I don't need to hear me. I need to hear them. I want to talk to them. You tell me what's going on. So during those times when you are reflecting and you're focusing and you're reflecting, I like to accentuate something that is positive for them. Like the example here, I promise to be honest with you based on things that I'm seeing, the things that we're discussing, you seem to be a very strong person. You seem to come across very intelligent. The way that you articulately described how you're feeling, and this can take people quite a while in therapy to get to this point. Now, as you see, what does this do? It's a subtle way of infusing some positivity into an uncomfortable situation. Now, I know, like, when I think back to like when I was little, 5, 6, 7 years old, and let one of my aunts and uncles come around and say, "Show me your muscle," and I stick this toothpick out with a mosquito bite on it, and I'm like, "These are my muscles." I can't tell you how long I felt strong. I, I'm beating my parents up, trying to tell them, please go get some Wheaties, and oh, I need my vegetables. I, Brussels sprout. I don't like Brussels sprouts, and I'm grown. I'm think about how that made a kid feel. Let me see your muscles. It's the same thing, right? You're not you're not patronizing adults, but what you're doing is you're trying to show them that, you know what, hey, man, there's a little sparkle in there somewhere. And I see that you actually taking the time to come down here for us to have this conversation, and for you to explain yourself. um you're further along than you think you are. These are types of things that will cause them to want to come back. They will want to come and talk to you. There's a reason why people always gravitate to, well, not all people, so I don't want to make a hard and fast statement. There's a reason why some people like accolades, because it's approval. We can be as lone a wolf as we want to be. I don't care what people think, and by and large, that might be true, for the most part. But when people are pleased, when people show us that, um, we've contributed positively to something, you kind of seek that back out. You seek it out again, and you don't want to let that person down. So no, I'm not telling you this is not an underhanded way of trying to make somebody feel guilty, because um, if you don't, if they don't say they don't ever come back, this is something they can think about. And if they go on to the next person, maybe that may be the time where they stick with it. I remember just here recently, I went into the military at about 21. I went in a Gulf War about 21. So, don't pull out your fingers and start trying to calculate. But I went in about 21. There are a lot of people who were just out of high school. I had been to college, right? And there were some people who had come in out of high school, 17, about to be 18-year-old. And again, this is the beginning of the Gulf War. And as a squad leader, I did what I knew to do best. A few months ago, I got an email from somebody who was in my squad. He was a lot younger, and I hadn't spoken to this man in 30 plus years. Uh, and he told me that some of the things that I imparted then, he thought about, he even acted on, and he appreciated. Now, that's not me. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. What I am saying is, once people are recognized, once you let them know that, their contributions were needed and their contributions helped you, or in this situation, when you are building them up, more than likely they'll be back. I've had that multiple times. People are like, you know what, I remember such and such and such you said. I'm like, okay, sounds good. But if I said it, I'll take credit for it. Just kidding. So evoking is the why part of the process. Um, One of the things that we can do is we can revisit some of those times of overindulgence. And then we discuss those consequences. And those consequences can be the catalyst for change. Can you recall some things that happened to you, or some uncomfortable situations you've been in while under the influence? That's a tough question for some people, because some people don't want to answer that question. Why? Some things they've done are embarrassing. And there are a lot of things that people suppress when they are embarrassed. But by engaging in evoking, what you're doing is you're asking them, I need you to recall that situation. And I will say this, yes, as a psychologist, I will say this. Um, Figuratively speaking, figuratively, not every dead body needs to be resurrected. You don't need to exhume every hurt and pain in somebody's life. We are talking specifically. If you read that question, can you recall some things that have happened to you, or some uncomfortable situations you've been in while under the influence? That didn't touch relationships. That didn't touch work. That didn't touch anything. I am being specific. Let's talk about what has happened while you were under the influence. That's what we need to address, because what ends up happening is, when we do this, we're causing somebody to think, follow me, think about something they've already processed. So when if I ask this question, they've already processed what they've done, that situation, in those circumstances. So they can speak differently about them. It's like this. If you have ever, any of us, we've all done it at some point. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and had a great meal, and the meal was awesome, and I mean, you just raved about it, right? And then say it's been several months that you haven't been there yet. Excuse me, haven't been back to it, right? So in a random conversation, someone says, "Oh, I'm going to, you know, going to Billy's." What happens in that situation? You begin to recall things that you didn't know that you remember. You can, I mean, you're like, oh my gosh, the food was great, the atmosphere was great. You can probably, I can tell you where we're sitting, and you can tell, the first bite of food, the service, you can go down the list. I mean, to the point where you're like, you know what? And when I got my water, there was 17 cubes of ice in my water, and the water was so crisp. I don't know where they got it from. I don't know if they chased the glacier and they squeezed the glacier. You get into details, right? This is why I would ask, can you recall the situation? Because if it was an embarrassing situation, you know how you felt. You don't need me to tell you how you felt. You can tell me how you felt, and you can get into those details. This is why, one of the reasons why we would use evoking and the overindulgence, this times of overindulgences to quite possibly spark the desire for change. So this is a client, right? Sure. Been several incidences. One that still makes me cringe is when I, got wasted at a family gathering. I was obnoxious. I was just, I was a jerk. Took a swing at my dad, someone I deeply love and respect. And I didn't even stop there. Cursed at my grandma. And I passed out in the garden, in the yard in broad daylight. That right there, that take us about 45 minutes to an hour to unpack all of that. Because I can begin to ask, how did you feel? What in the world? Oh my God. But you'll see the therapist's response using empathy. Don't forget to use empathy. You can't be like, you dummy, that was stupid. Nobody needs to hear how bad they are or how bad the situation is while they're in the middle of it. And no, this is past, but when you talk about it, you bring it up again. When you bring it up again, I don't need to hear how dumb whatever I did was. I know it was dumb. I don't need you to co-sign on that. So as a therapist, you asking the question, oh man, I can't imagine how that made you feel. And you see there, I put, there's a lot, that's a lot for us to process. Think about it. How many times have all of us been laying in bed thinking about something completely unrelated? And then we reflect back to something that we said to somebody 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you still cringe. This is what that is. When we evoke this kind of dialogue, we want them, I want you to see, I want you to see for yourself how bad this can get. You see that? You talk to people when I blacked out and I woke up this place and I didn't know where I was and I didn't know who was next to me and all kinds of things, right? Now think about it. If you fast forward past that, you just keep living, right? And maybe the goal is to not do that again. But by evoking and I'm asking you how you felt, what happened? I mean, think about it. Like I just said, I took a swing at my dad. I cursed out my grandmother. And I still have to go around these people. That is a major catalyst for somebody to change. And it is something that you can hold on to, not to hold over their heads, but hold on to build on. Because that's what we need to do. We got to build on things. Again, remember, this is not about us. This is about them. This is about helping them to recognize it. When I was when working with the homeless, the unhoused, and I kind of referred to part of this last week. There's a time when people can reach an ammonia-like state with their when their body odor if they haven't had a shower. And that ammonia-like state means that they can't smell themselves. Excuse me. I can smell you. Everybody in 30-foot radius can smell them, but they can't smell them. Right now, it's very easy for me to have said, "Hey, you need a shower," but I might have embarrassed them. I might have encountered resistance, but by establishing rapport, having a conversation, talking to them about them, well, how have you been? Have you been keeping yourself safe? Yeah, I've been keeping myself safe. When's the last time you ate? You notice I'm building up to it. When's the last time you've had something to eat? Oh, I ate yesterday. Okay. Man, when's the last time you had a haircut? We can get you a haircut if you like a haircut. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a haircut. Okay. When's the last time you had a shower? Because if you want a shower, we can go get you, and get you, some fresh clothes and I'll get you some towels and something like that. I haven't had a shower in, about a week. Maybe that might be a good idea. I mean, um, Will you be here when I get back so we can talk or whatever? Yeah, be right here. Let me help you go get set up for a shop. Not one part of that was me pushing them. I ain't push you because here's the truth of the matter, and it may sound cold. If you smell that bad, I don't have to be around you. I don't need to push you. I didn't need to push them to do that. But you want this process to be something that they have agreed to on their own. They came to that decision on their own. This is why we use evoking, so we can start to ask some questions. And you cuss out your grandma? Yikes, man. That, oh, man, I don't even know how you feel about that. Oh, gosh. Do you see? I didn't make him feel bad at all. I'm not trying to make him feel bad. I'm just letting you know about, that sounds about as bad as you just made it sound to help them to start to think. And these are some of the outcomes from evoking. It's a segue to mentioning the subject could change, like I said. You told me about a bad situation. You put it on the table. Now, guess what? Now I can talk about it with you. It can facilitate the ease of increasing the talk to change. Again, this is all their information. This is all their information. Um, it can be a great indicator for the patient's desire to change their behavior. Because as we start talking about this stuff, then you know what? It's like, wow, that was pretty bad. Oh, man, maybe I might need to do something different. And then it begins to lay the building blocks for the foundation of pursuing change. Because again, I asked you about a situation, you told me about it. Now, if you're telling me about it, it wasn't very great. Because remember, I asked, is there anything that, anything else that you've kind of encountered that was, not the greatest when you were under the influence? Say, we open the door then. You told me what the problem was. Now we can start to talk about change discussion. And then once we start talking about change discussions, as we have the more conversations, it can be that indicator for their desire to change. If they are cringing, now if you're talking to somebody like, yeah, I cursed out my grandmother and oh my God, dude, I took a swing at my dad. It was crazy. That might not be the person who's ready to change yet, right? But if they seem remorseful, then they can begin to lay those laying blocks so that the building blocks so that you can pursue change. And then, it measures, and I put anecdotally because nobody's pulling out a chart and, marking off numbers, but it anecdotally, excuse me, measures their commitment to change. Because as we start talking, and again, measuring the commitment to change it's last for a reason. I can't do that at first. You can't measure their commitment to change just because they showed up. Mm-mm. How many times have we walked into a restaurant and I'm looking at the menu, or you check the atmosphere and you see, you're like, nah, I'm good. Just showing up does not mean they're committed to change. Showing up means that they're interested in the idea. Now let's work together to build on it. Planning stage. Planning stage is as it sounds. This is a trans theoretical model. It's been around since about the 70s or so. It is also known as the stages of the change model. And I won't go too deep into this because this is something that you and the care team will work on. Pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Any plan that we have, be it personal, professional, or with our patients and clients, this is what it's going to take. The patient client walking into the door, that's pre-contemplation. Talk to me, tell me what you got. As we discuss, then they get into contemplation. Then they get into preparation as we move past contemplation into, all right, well, if you enjoy that behavior, if you enjoy that lifestyle, look, just be safe. Take care of yourself. Be safe. If you're going to use, make sure that you use, with people you care about and what have you, right? If you're going to continue to use. But if you don't want to use, now let's prepare you for the next steps. And this is when, again, you get together with your treatment team and the patient to talk about what you want this to look like. because you're going to get more buy-in when you get the right action step. And then the maintenance step is self-explanatory. This is when you have the groups and you have follow-up sessions and things of that nature to where they can maintain the success that they've attained. When is the time to plan? When there's sufficient motivation to change, when they have sustained engagement, they keep showing up. It's a good idea that they might be some motivation. So when the goals are clear and defined, they understand what they're embarking on. And if they do, okay, then we can get to moving forward. An adequate amount of buy-in. Again, have they articulated why they want to change? And then once, and I had to make sure I put this, but not always, they've begun to make changes without being prompted to. If you see that they are saying, you know what, hey, look, there was a party last week and I chose not to go. That is strong. Just because we can do anything doesn't mean that we can do everything. And for somebody to make that decision on their own, that's huge. So this is when you can begin to plan, not before, because I can promise you, your plans will fall flat because there's no buy-in. I like this quote by Pablo Picasso. Our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. There is no other route to success. There's not. And this is what we got to help our patients and clients to know. We got to let them know, look, I'm not going to let you fail. I said that last week. I'm not letting you fail. When people on my squad, people I work with, people report up to me, I'm not going to let you fail. I got you. But we got to have a plan. We got to put this thing together. And I know we're coming up on time, so I want to show you this. I want you to see these pictures. These are all sketches. And I think the detail is awesome in these sketches. And the next thing I want you to see is this. This is Doug Landis. He's a quadriplegic from the neck down. And as you see, he said he did not become an artist until he broke his neck in a wrestling match. And this is what all that he could do. Why do I show you this? I show you this because both personally, professionally, and with our patients, everything is not that hard. This man can stick a pencil in his face and draw this. I got access to two hands and I draw. I can't draw like this, but he's doing it with his mouth. This is what we have to convey to our patients and clients. Look, it can be done. It may not happen tomorrow, but we can do it. We can do this together if you're going to do this with me. And it's that encouragement that builds in them to know that they can do it. Because I honestly, and this is not specifically for this session, but I think about this man quite often. I seriously do. Because if he can do this, what in the world do I have to complain about? If somebody is using or what have you, you can change. Do you want it? When I used to coach, I used to tell people, I can't coach, don't want to. If you got some want to, we can go get it. If you don't have any want to, I can't do a whole lot for you. It's the same thing with your patients and your clients. So we have any questions? I know we probably got like 5 or 6 minutes. Are there any questions anybody has right now? Anybody?
While we're waiting for some questions, thanks again. That is the next few steps of motivational interviewing is awesome. The more I learn about it, the more I hope I can be good at it. Um, the focusing, so often when I'm listening, sometimes I catch myself listening to answer
Mhm.
versus just staying focused on what they're trying to tell me. Do you have any
Mhm.
tips on how we can do that just to stay, not just, I'm not meaning to stay present, but just to keep our minds from going to that next, like I don't know if other people like that. I am like that though. I'm not always listening
Mhm.
to just totally be immersed in what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of those things where we I'll say it this way. Sometimes we just have to stick something in our pie holes and shut up. Just listen. And it's often a good practice to think, I'm going to be tested on what they just said. Do I even know what they just said? We all do it. We all do it. We listen, I'll catch you here a couple words here and there to get the gist of what's being said and miss it. I mean, as much as I have to read, there are times where I skim over stuff and I'll try to do it and it doesn't work. Then I slow myself down and go back and read. I'm like, oh, I missed like 6 steps in between there. No wonder it wasn't going to work. Why? I wasn't paying attention. That's a great way to think about when someone is speaking. Are you listening? Do I hear you? If I'm going to be tested on it. If you ask me, what did I just say? And that's happened to me. Let's say my mom did, what I just say? Nope, I didn't say What did I just say? Right. Think about it. What it, and to not make it as not to make it as dire, but think about it in a way that says that, you know, did is me ignoring somebody their cry for help? It can be a simple conversation. I'm telling you, simple conversation. We've heard that, it's the final straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. Think about it. What is the straw? It is one straw. That time that you're ignoring that person, it could be just that straw. They could be asking you, hey, Krista, where are the pencils? Oh yeah, I got a pen right here. That ain't what I just asked you. That's not what I just said. It honestly, the things that I have seen people get upset about sometimes are the little things. So thinking about, what, if I'm going to be tested on this, if they just what they just said, did I hear them? And if you didn't hear them, something you can cover yourself. I apologize. Can you repeat that? I heard part of what you said, and I thought about it. Can you repeat what you just said? I want to make sure I understand you. It's okay to do that.
I just think I just want to ways I can practice that so I can become better at it. So thank you.
Yeah,
Those are great ideas.
yeah. Just reflect back. Reflect.
Um,
Yeah.
we we are basically out of time. I don't see any. Oh, there's a question. Thank you for your time today. Thanks, Heather. Should
Thank
I
you.
was one of the participants. Did you want to talk about your survey really quick and we can put the link in the
Yes.
and then
Uh,
switch to the oh yeah, you got your comfort contact information and then just remind everyone there's 2 more sessions left. So that'll be on the next slide.
we got 2 more sessions left, and what's going to be sent out to everybody is it's a survey. This is a stigma survey, and I can tell you that these are not results that we will look at. So I want people to answer this honestly. The results do not come to myself or Southern Utah University. They don't come to us. So I honestly, and I don't mean to sound mean, I don't care what you put in it. I won't see it. I don't have to aggregate nothing. I have to know anything. But what I would like for everyone to do who does receive the survey, a matter of fact, you can pass it around to people too, because it's a hyperlink. You can pass it around and have them take it.
We'll
Um,
also email the hyperlink out too
yeah.
with the sessions.
Yeah. And once you do, I promise you, your eyes will be open to some of your own biases, because sometimes we're not always asked these things. So with that, thank y'all for your time today. Let's see, right at time. Look at that.
I know,
So we're
great
right at
job.
time. Thank
Yep.
everybody for joining, and we will see you next week.
The link is in the chat because I think stigma goes hand in hand with motivational reviewing. So thank you.